trailers. A little outside my normal content, but I have like 10 of the things right now and somebody requested, so why not do a little informational video on them? So under the umbrella of most commercially available private use trailers, they come in like 2.5 types. The most common type of trailer you're gonna get is a bumper pull. And this is pretty self-explanatory. The trailer hooks to a hitch that is located near or on the bumper. And bumper pulls will be the only types of trailers you can pull behind a car, SUV, or a crossover. Basically, if your tow vehicle doesn't have a pickup bed, you're stuck with a bumper pull. And that's fine. You can get bumper pull trailers that'll fit just about any need you could ever want within reason. But if you really need to haul some serious ass, get it. It's a horse trailer. I could put donkeys in it if I wanted to. Don't unfollow me. The other type and a half of coupling would be a gooseneck or fifth wheel. So a gooseneck is a long arching coupling that hooks to a ball inside the bed of the truck over the axle. Now, out of all the trailers I own, I don't own one with a fifth wheel coupling. Those are pretty much exclusively used on larger campers. But for weight distribution wise, it's the same concept. It hooks to the same spot in the truck bed, but the actual coupling is very similar to how a semi-truck hooks to its trailers. It's a big horseshoe shaped plate that the trailer actually rides on with a pin that locks in place. I'm not gonna spend a ton of time on the differences between those two. The fifth wheel is a little bit easier to hook up to, but it takes up a lot more bed space. And they have adapters to make either type of trailer hook to either type of coupling, so it really just comes down to a preference. So the pros and cons of the two types of trailer couplings. Since a fifth wheeler or gooseneck is putting the weight of the hitch directly over the rear axle and not hanging way out over the bumper, it actually increases the trailer's gross vehicle weight rating by 15% because it's sharing more of that load with the tow vehicle. Goosenecks provide superior control, especially with less than ideal weight distribution on the trailer. Get weight too far back on a bumper hitch and they're prone to fishtail and turn you into a very expensive roadblock. This can happen with a gooseneck as well, but it is a lot more forgiving. As far as maneuverability goes, a bumper hitch responds much quicker to turning inputs when you're backing it up, but a gooseneck, depending on the layout, can be jackknifed to a 90 to 130 degree angle in comparison to the truck, which gives you a lot more maneuverability options when you're backing into weird, hard to get to places. Then obviously with a gooseneck or a fifth wheel, you sacrifice some bed space. You can't have a topper or a hard tonneau cover on it, and it can only be pulled with trucks that have the proper hitch for that trailer. Bumper pulls obviously don't sacrifice any bed space, and anything with a trailer hitch probably has the right style hitch to pull the trailer. So as long as the tow vehicle itself is capable, you can tow it with just about anything. Now, trailer weight ratings all come down to your axles. Axles are rated for a specific amount of weight. You times that rating by the number of axles you have, and that gives you your trailer's gross weight rating. So my gooseneck here, for example, has two 7,000-pound axles. It's a 14,000-pound trailer. It's a gooseneck, so I get my extra 15%, a little over 15,000 pounds. Then you measure out the weight of the trailer, which on this one's probably about 3,500, 4,000 pounds. You minus that from your gross, and that's the amount of weight it can haul legally. Now, as far as vehicles go, every vehicle will have a manufacturer maximum tow rating. You can Google this. It'll be in your book if you still have it. But make sure you look up your specific vehicle with your motor, your transmission, your cab configuration, all of your options, because that will affect it. When manufacturers advertise their ratings, they're advertising it with the options that give you the maximum rating, so the number looks the biggest, not necessarily the options you have, and that's not necessarily your rating. And the other thing to remember is just because the manufacturer says you can does not mean you should. For example, a lot of half tons out there now say they've got a max tow rating of 14,000 pounds. If you're out there pulling around a 14,000 pound trailer with a 4,500 pound half ton, you're an idiot. It's one thing if you're going short distances on rare occasions, and go ahead, max that tow rating out. But if you're towing something often or long distances, get something that's a little overqualified for the job. If you're trying to figure out how much your half ton or your crossover can pull in the first place, you probably aren't that experienced to begin with, and an inexperienced driver operating a vehicle at the max of its capabilities is always a recipe for disaster. And until you start getting up into 3/4 ton and 1 ton trucks that were specifically designed with towing in mind and not specifically for fuel economy or comfort, operating a vehicle consistently at close to its tow rating, even 60-70%, is going to cause a lot of undue stress on the expensive parts like motors and transmissions and suspension. Unless it's a Dodge, then you don't need to worry. It's going to break no matter what. But yeah, we've all seen those guys with their half-ton trucks pulling their 32-foot bumper hitch campers, front tires barely on the fucking ground, struggling to do 55 miles an hour. Don't be that guy. Everybody who drives by you is judging you. And the other thing to consider when buying a trailer or tow vehicle is it's not always about weight. It's also about wind resistance. For example, this is a 3/4 ton truck. Tow rating's probably 10, 12,000 pounds, something like that. This trailer probably doesn't even weigh 1,000 pounds, but it's shaped like a fucking brick with hard edges instead of rounded edges, which are awful for wind resistance. And this truck struggles over 60 miles an hour pulling that trailer. Now, my diesel, on the other hand, has no idea it's back there. But just remember, just because a trailer is light doesn't necessarily mean it's going to pull easy. And just because your vehicle can handle the weight doesn't mean it can handle the wind resistance, and you might be putting along at 45 miles an hour. And then I'll finish by saying that there's a couple things that you can get that will make towing safer and easier. The first is a weight distribution hitch. They have some like big levers and chains you hook up, and through witchcraft, it somehow redistributes the weight of the trailer on your tow vehicle. I'm not exactly sure how they work because I've never used them because I've always had big boy trucks, but everybody I know who has used them swears by them, so apparently they work well, especially on lighter duty tow vehicles. And the other thing is airbags, which really only work on pickup trucks or truck-based SUVs with a straight axle. It's basically a miniaturized version of what semi-trucks use for suspension, and when you're not towing, you can release all the air from them and it doesn't change your ride. But when you are towing, you can increase the stiffness of your rear suspension and keep those front tires on the ground, making it more stable and controllable. So I hope that helps, and if you're just getting into it for the first time, remember to be safe. Remember, it takes 3 times longer to stop. You can't just swerve to avoid things, and go to a big open space and learn how to back up, especially for the love of God if you're buying a boat. For your dignity and the rest of our time, learn how to back that thing up before you go to the boat launch.